Welcome to the ArcFlash podcast, sparking new ideas in the data center sector. I'm Kevin Aboden.
And I'm Jabez and we're here to provide a balanced, nuanced, and hopefully unbiased view on the state and most pressing topics affecting the data center and hyperscale cloud industry. What we want to see our industry succeed, but we're not naive cheerleaders nor doomsayers. What we ultimately believe is the best way forward to see the industry experience sustainable growth is by addressing and being transparent with the challenges and sharing key themes and trends that are unfolding in the sector. Kevin and I have both been covering the space for a while, and it's great to have our guest, Renan, here today.
Pleased to meet you. Thank you for having me here, Kevin and Jabez. I'm Renan,
Absolutely.
CEO from Boost.
And maybe if you could explain to lead off for those who are unfamiliar with Boost, what your goals are and what you're bringing to the Brazilian market.
Okay, perfect. So Boost, it's a company which, well, the name I already said, we are here to boost the data center industry, right? We work from the conceptual design to turnkey constructions and site operations. We organize ourselves, as we're going to talk today, in the new, let's say, moment that the data center market is in Brazil, to have a complete, transparent and professional structure to help foreigners to invest in Brazil and to help Brazilian companies to grow and expand internationally as well.
Fantastic. And I think that's much needed, right? There's so much going on in Brazil. And I think because a lot of our audience is coming from outside the country, or likely outside even the region, maybe you could describe just the flood of interest that's been going on across the country for the last few years. I mean, there's been a lot of hyperscale moves. There have been plenty of operators coming into developing. What's the situation like, and what are some key points?
Yeah, perfect. So Brazil, it's I've been working in this market has been about 20 years in the mission critical industry, but I would say that it was 2009 that Brazil actually kicked off on the data center in a stronger point of view. There were Brazilian companies like Divio and others which were here already doing business, but more like hosting and some more the different operations. And the colo industry actually started about 2010, 2011. The major company which actually started this was Ascenti, which now it belongs to Brookfield and Digital Realty. And the market was, tremendous growth in this last 13 years, I must say. So the amount of data center, let's say, Ascenti has started in 2011, and they have already 35 data center in a and building in a incredible pace with a very big data center for the major hyperscalers in the world. So the market started, let's say, with like venture capital. People were renting warehouses and, with a long-term lease, and they were converting into data centers, and were they were trying to understand a little bit of the market and see how that would work out. But then, the market started in mid 2015 with actually 2013 started Odata with a private equity, and other private equity companies started off. Ascenti was sold 8 years later from their startup. So they started actually in 2010, 2018. They were sold for $2 billion for Brookfield and Digital Realty. And this has, they have built 20 plus data center after that. Odata, they belong to Patra. They now actually was just acquired also for $2 billion deal for what is the name of the company? Is well, I just forgot
Was
the name of.
Cyrus one or
No, it was not Cyrus One. It was it will come off and a big data center
oh,
from US company.
Digital Bridge, right?
Digital, yeah.
Yeah.
So, and then there is Digital Bridge investing through Scala, and then there is lots of investments coming over. But the thing is, I would say that Brazil started off in 2010 with venture capital, 2020 and plus. Now they are in a complete different league. So they have big investors, big data center companies coming over. The hyperscalers, they are here for a long time still, but their pace of growth, they are keeping. growing a lot because of cloud demand, but now this year specifically because of AI.
Yeah, and
And that
apologies. I
brings
think
up a good
the
point. Yeah.
yeah the I think the company that acquired OData was Align Data Centers, right, Renan?
Align data center, yes. Thank you. Align data center.
Yeah,
So
sorry,
so
Kevin, you were
you
asking.
you can have just reframe this. So Ascenti started with venture capital, Great Hill Partners, and then 2018 they were sold for Brookfield and Digital Realty. Then you have uh, 2013, I guess, was Odata that was sold for $2 billion for Align Data Centers. Then you have a lot of spin-offs from enterprise companies like Telefonica, which sold to Naviax, and then it was just acquired recently again. So there is lots of M&A happening. And 3 years ago, Scala came with a completely, you know, very big pace of growth. They are building huge data center in Brazil and Latin America. So we have, I must say, today about 500 megs of data center of IT load in Brazil about that. So it's difficult to keep track on all the pace of growth. And this Brazilian industry, they actually they organize themselves not by territory but by the customers. So the territory is actually Latin America. So those Brazilian companies, all of them, they went overseas for Chile, Colombia, Peru, and Mexico mainly, and they are whenever the customer wants. So this is in Brazil. Likewise, I would say that 80% of the industry is concentrated from São Paulo to Campinas or Sumaré region, but you also have hot zones in Rio and Northeast Brazil, and this is only for the really hyperscalers. Then you have edge and retail, which is a recent AI I've learned from infrastructure research. So those guys, there is other companies which are doing that. So Vital, it's a lot of investments, but they are positioning themselves in a mid-sized data center. Likewise, Eled Digital, which is Piedmont Holding, back off by Goldman Sachs. So you can see a lot of big investments happening in Brazil, and this is a uh, different league. So now the companies, they are requiring completely different uh, financial position. They want to have the data center company, the data center colo, have the financials to support their growth and their pace of growth. The colos wants to have a very high level professionals working with them with transparency and governance. ESG is coming uh, every time stronger. But I see the industry as a whole, it's keeping to the pace, and there is lots of things happening in Brazil. It's quite interesting.
That is a lot to cover. I think you mentioned the 80% of in Sao Paulo and Campinas. Do you see that coming? Do you see that continuing over the next few years? That the growth is going to be centered there, or do you see like Fortaleza because of all the cables coming in? You're going to see more growth in that area at the expense of other markets.
So that's a very interesting point. So you have different drivers for growth, right? So the region itself, the let's say the region of the cloud zones, which require for local zones, this is, let's say, the main stage. It is Sao Paulo. So this will grow as the demand grows. There is lots of, I've heard that 30% of the cloud is still being supplied by data center across the ocean. So they are not with local data centers. So and then you have the different layers of data centers in different regions. So I see that the major market will still grow a lot in São Paulo region, a lot. There is lots of work to be done for the cloud. Then, likewise, Rio and other states, which are now starting to have data centers like Porto Alegre, Brasilia, Pernambuco, and other places, because of the local population to provide to the industry and the local the local population a very good latency for the cloud. But in top of that, you have the AI industry, which is very recent, right? So for all of us, and for the AI, you know better than me, you have, you know, the two layers. You have the training part, and you have the how do you call the
Inference.
Inference.
can you say again? The Portuguese is a little bit different.
Inference in English.
Okay, so inference and the training part. And if you think, when I thought about that, only the inference itself, it's booming for data center, because if you think about the bank industry and everything which is Office 365 with a co-pilot, they can actually provide only for this, for inference, you have huge amount of data which needs to be processed. But there is an additional driver of that, which is the training part. So Brazil has, you know, the energy in Brazil is 20% less than US. 80% of the industry, the grid, is renewable energy, right? Already for a long time, hydro, solar, and wind power, which is completely different and a problem for US, which you already have over there. Bring your own energy, right? And Europe, even less. You have huge problems in Europe because of renewable energy. It's for the local population and not for the data centers. So Brazil represents, you know, lots of power with idle capacity of renewable energy, a lot of space to grow, and very good cost of energy. So then you have for the training part, which is not latency critical, you can bring this data center to Brazil as well. So you have, you know, several layers which you can organize in Brazil. You have the cloud and the OTTs, which wants to be local and improve their latency and their customer experience. Then you have the training, the AI part, which you needs to be close to your end customer. So when Copilot was launched here in Brazil, they will all support it for US. You can imagine, you know, the bandwidth which you need to have in the fiber optics and so on. So if you need to have for this inference to have them in Brazil, and then you have the training part which you can also bring to Brazil as well. So it's a very very nice place to be now in Brazil. There is lots of things to be done. The industry as a whole, they are organizing themselves to keep the pace, and every time it's an increasing demand of speed, increasing demand of density, increasing demand of energy, and with the bottlenecks that all the global industry has, that it is supply chain, right? I guess that everybody's suffering for a long time now with the supply chain, and this is becoming even more challenging for this layer after layer driver of growth.
Yeah, and Renan, you specifically mentioned two kind of keywords that I wanted to zone on. You mentioned idle capacity and then supply chain and constraints. And what's happening across many global tier one markets is there's not enough power availability from the grid and from substations across tier one markets. The fact that Brazil still does not have that level of constraint and is a very strong tier one market, potential tier one market in many people's eyes, I think you'll see an increased influx of activity from capital investments coming in. Um, I wanted to zone in on, because you talked about the colo, the data center operator side of the space. How active have each of the hyperscalers been in Brazil? I think it's fairly well known that Microsoft has a fairly sizable presence in Sao Paulo, but feel free to walk us through the hyperscaler activity in Brazil today that you're aware of, at least, or that you can share.
Okay, no, I think that the market as a whole, there is only few big players that actually they are doing the job, but for sure the larger portion, to not be make any mistakes here, is plus than 50%, but I think it is much more than 50%. The drivers are from AWS and Microsoft, and those two, they are driving the growth a lot. Oracle, IBM, and Google, they have important data centers as well in Brazil. Likewise, some other companies like Tencent and Huawei, but those Asian ones, they are still very far behind the major players from US. This is for sure what is happening. Those data centers, they their topology, they will never build just one data center. So they always have three data centers or two or three, or depending on the configuration, they will have five to run that project. So the constraints here many times, although the pace of growth of all the major colos and all their efforts, and they are doing a very good job, this represents a bottleneck for the hyperscale growth and keeping their potential in Brazil. So we have seen recently AWS and Microsoft building their own data centers in São Paulo region and soon in other states probably. But the thing is, I feel it, and it's for my personal feeling. It's not because they want to verticalize, but it's because they don't want to have a bottleneck as such few colo providers, which they are big and they are making investments, but still, you have for big hyperscalers, you have Ascenti, Odata, which is now a line data center, and Scala in this first league, right? It's only three of them. Then you have Ada coming with huge investments. They already announced globally for this GLP business unit, 800 megs here in Japan and London, but at very big sites. But this is a starting point, and there is large space to and idle capacity from the grid, to accommodate that idle capacity in terms of space and idle capacity because of the demand from the hyperscalers.
I mean, idle capacity, all the clients that everyone wants to be with already, and renewable energy. I mean, this is starting to add up pretty well for a lot of companies who I think who might be listening. So just throwing that out there as a recap. Really quickly before we go, we were talking off air about what the Brazilian Data Center Association has been up to. And I think it's really important because you shared some details that I think would make it a lot more helpful for those companies internationally who are trying to enter the country. So if you could go into some detail about what some of those initiatives are and what's progressing currently.
Perfect. So 3 years ago, we created a Brazilian Association of Data Centers. So we understand that the bottleneck in the industry as a whole, there's lots, right? Supply chain is one that we is difficult to organize. But in terms of training, people which actually know about data center and people to have this knowledge and accommodate the pace of growth to operate the data center and so on. So we need to provide training. So this is something which we have done. There's multiple training which is you can do in company, or you just go for the association and they will train from design, electrical details and the cooling system and every kind of aspects from the data center point of view. So this is one. The second part, it's the standardizations. So the standards, they have all the suppliers come with the different standards from our market. So they come from Europe, or it comes from US or UL or IEC. So you don't have anything which actually in Brazil will talk with those two standards, and you actually can have something which is in Brazil you can organize in the whole supply chain. So this is something which we are working strongly. The third aspect is to have network and to organize the industry as a whole. So we understand if you want to improve your PUE or electrical efficiency, you have oversizing in every different aspects, starting from the server and then the rack, and then the rack size is oversized, and then you have the cooling oversized, and then you have the UPS oversized, you have genset oversized, and everything is oversized. So it's quite difficult to keep a very low PUE unless the industry organize as a whole to exchange information and try to accommodate those things. And in the top of that, which is very strong and become even stronger recently, it's the discussions with authorities. So it's completely different from one single company to come and talk with the government. But when we organize ourselves as a whole and talk with the industry through the association, trying to have tax exemptions and besides tax benefits, but also uh, financial incentives for lower interest rate for to develop data centers. This is actually very strong with the Ministry of Development of Brazil. The vice president himself has attended to big events about that. They have opened a formal agenda to talk with us about that. And there are multiple companies which are organizing through us and other associations which also feeds in the same environment. We are organizing ourselves to have this thing done. Now, the portion that we are there will be incentives and there already have. So in Brazil we have the union, the state, the federal and the state, and then the municipality. In the terms of municipality of providing service tax benefits, many of the cities already give that. So you have many of the cities in São Paulo state and even Rio, you already have tax incentives. Then you have state incentives, which, depending on the state, they already have also implemented a few of them. And we are trying now on the federal part that we will have uh, even larger incentives towards the industry. And of course, lower interest rate from the government will be also very welcome for everybody, right? So this is something which is top in our agenda. This is of a Brazilian Association of Data Center, and also to help people that want to invest in Brazil, to find their stakeholders for the data center industry, to find local partners, to understand how they can organize themselves, and also to help, suppliers to get to the end customers as well. So this networking part is also very important, not only locally but globally.
And I think all your energy will be much more rewarded when more companies enter because of those incentives. It's going to be very attractive.
Yes. So this is something which everybody which is attending to a association wants, right? We are taking our badge aside, our job title, and so on, and coming as a first to deliver to our industry the knowledge that we have received over those 20 years of experience. So this is very localized. We know lots of things because we've been there, we've done that, and this is not yet organized. And we are doing that, and also providing this training to universities and other uh, agencies, which can actually, train more people and share those knowledge. And the industry and everybody which is associated, they understand that the success of the Brazilian Association of Data Center represents a direct or indirect gain for all of us. So if we bring more companies to Brazil, if we are more efficient, more professional, if we are more transparent with local and foreigner players, we can make more money, we can develop further the country, and will be, for everybody will be much better. So that's exactly the goal.
And I can't think of a better note to end on. Thank you so much, Renan. Have a wonderful rest of your week. And thanks to everyone for tuning in. We'll be back with another episode, exciting episode, very soon.